Hello, I'm Susan Green, Associate Curator of Special Collections, Archives, and Research at the Philbrook Museum of Art. And I'm so glad you've joined me today for Curators at Home and Room of the Week. And today, well, last week we talked about Genevieve's bedroom. So we talked about her French furniture, her bed that was on top of the platform, her polar bear. And the week before we talked about Waite's bedroom. And so I thought it was only fair if we take a look at the kids' bedrooms. So we get a lot of questions about Elliot and Helen Jane, the Phillips family kids, and what it was like for them to live here, what their bedrooms looked like, what they did for fun, what they and their friends did. And while I can't answer all of the questions, I can show you what their bedrooms looked like and tell you a couple of stories. And then we can look at what the bedrooms look like today. So let's take a look at Elliot and Helen Jane. And here they are. So Elliot was 9 when the Phillips family moved in. Helen Jane was about 16. In this photograph, which was taken in 1931, Elliot's about 13, so early teenager. Helen Jane is 19, maybe 20 in the photograph, so a young woman. They are so poised, elegant. Elliot's in these fantastic knife pleat white pants, double-breasted suit, wingtip shoes, so dapper, and Helen Jane is in this truly lovely lace dress with a colored sash, dramatic colored sash, and they're standing in the gardens. And we have this photograph of, they've included one of their family pets, one of their dogs. They had at least 2 dogs while they lived at Villa Philbrook. And I think it's fantastic that they had these dogs. They included dogs in their photographs, and multiple photographs. And I think it's great that now we're kind of cat people at Philbrook. So we have our beloved Acer, who's in retirement, and Perilla and Cleo, who are our resident cats. The Phillipses had resident dogs, but they loved animals, and I think they would totally be down with our cats at Philbrook. But I would have loved to meet their dogs. And you can tell they really did care for their dogs. So Helen Jane and Elliot lived at Villa Philbrook for only about 11 years. They moved in, like I said, Elliot was about 9. When they moved it out, Elliot was just about 21. And we actually have a photograph of them from that time. So this photograph is special to Philbrook. This is a photograph of the opening party for when Philbrook became a museum. When it was turned over, this was the first event when we were a museum. And this is Helen Jane and Elliot. They came to the party representing their parents. Their parents didn't come, but Helen Jane and Elliot did. Elliot is 21 in his great tuxedo, and Helen Jane is about 28 here. So Helen Jane, they were both their own people by this time. Helen Jane had been married. She has 2 boys, and she's living her life as a part of the community of Tulsa. Elliot had gone away to school as a teenager and then went to Stanford and finished up his education at Stanford, and had just finished at Stanford in the spring before this party. So he was ready and out in the world and figuring out what he was doing with his life. And I love this kind of moment right on the cusp of their lives and right on the cusp of Philbrook as an institution. You can also tell from this photograph that they were really close. So this is just a candid shot during the opening party. You can see it's kind of, there's people's elbows in the frame, but they are next to each other, and they're next to each other in a couple of the photographs that we have of the opening party. So they're right there together, being there and supporting each other. But we want to see what their rooms looked like when they lived at Villa Philbrook. So first, let's see where the rooms actually were. So here's the back of Philbrook, so the garden side or the east side, and the front of Philbrook or the west side. And the family had bedrooms on the upper level. Helen Jane's bedroom is on the garden side. So on the left photograph, and her bedroom is the one kind of blocked by a tree, but it has access onto this fantastic balcony where she could go out and have her coffee or tea. She could read. She could just enjoy the sun, smell the breezes from the garden. And then Elliot had his bedroom right across the hall from her in the front of the house. So on the picture of the front of the Philbrook facade, you can see the kind of the building sticks out a little bit, and there's a series of large windows on the front as it's facing the circle drive. So that's Elliot's room. So let's see what it looks like inside. So here we go. Helen Jane's room, Elliot's room, totally different. And I really like the idea that Genevieve, as she was designing the interior of the house, she was thinking about them as individuals and not just as kids. So Helen Jane's room is kind of elegant, really riffs off of the design for Genevieve's own room, but Elliot's room definitely looks like the room of a 9-year-old boy, or at least a 9-year-old boy in 1927, but we'll see Elliot's room in just a little bit. So let's really look at Helen Jane's room. So here's Helen Jane's room. She has a chaise longue. She has lovely furniture with, again, this Louis XV style, like her mother's room. So curving lines, cabriole legs, even the fireplace mantle has curves to it. The drapes are silk and satin taffeta. They have these great swoops, and we know from the inventory that they are this rich apricot color. And then the under drapes, or the under curtains, are a green and white stripe. So it is a really rich, lush colored room, not just a light pastel, but rich colors. And something else, so this is her bedroom. On the architectural plans, it's noted Miss Phillips' bedroom, or daughter's bedroom. But there's not actually a bed. There's a chaise longue, which is just like a long couch that you could recline and read, take a nap. But there's not an actual bed. So what they had instead of bedrooms, well, this is the bedroom. This is more like almost a study or a place to hang out with friends, a place to read. It wasn't the place where she slept. This place where she slept was the sleeping-porch. So you can see there's kind of gauzy curtains and French doors. If you parted those curtains and went through the French doors, you would go in onto her sleeping porch. And it's the sleeping porch that has access to that balcony. So the sleeping porch has 2 beds in the same Louis XV French style. So just as elegant, same apricot drapes. And that is the place that she actually slept. If you look on the right photograph, there's a door, and that door goes to her bathroom. And then on the other side of the piece of furniture, there's another door, and that door goes to her dressing room and closet. So we do have a photograph of her dressing room, and that's this. So we only have a couple of photographs of sort of the non-public spaces. This is one of them. Her dressing room is fantastic. Lots of mirrors, lots of space. There's even, it looks like a little poof where you could sit and put on your shoes. And then it has a dressing table. So a place for Helen Jane to do her hair, do her makeup. And then her closet would be over to the side, an actual closet, but she's got lots of windows. Lots of mirrors. But something else about this that I also love is that, you remember when she moves in, she's 16. So she's just sort of in between being a girl and being a young woman. And the dressing room still has that sense of the girl. So she has probably French fashion dolls. So 3 or 4 fashion dolls who sort of grace the presence of this dressing room. And so you kind of get the sense that she's in this transition between girl and woman. Something else that I really, so little, but I love it, is that on the inventory, we know that they had made a special wastebasket for Helen Jane's room that was green and white stripes on the outside and apricot lined on the inside to match her drapes. And I like to think that the wastebasket in the dressing room is that very special custom-made wastebasket. So Helen Jane's room, Helen Jane didn't live in this room actually a long time. She moved in when she was 16, but when she was 21, she eloped. So she only lived in the room about 5 years. And she went on to be her own person. And I think that this room, you can tell that she maybe, when this photograph was taken, maybe she hadn't been living in this space. I think this photograph was taken after she got married and moved out. But the room, when we became a museum, changed several times. So at first it was, there were smaller galleries, changing galleries, maybe a print gallery, but it kind of stayed the same as in the footprint. Now, when the Phillips family moved out, they did knock out the dressing room and bathroom walls and made larger spaces. But the fact that there was a bedroom and the sleeping porch were still there, these footprints of the 2 rooms. In the 1970s, however, we had grown as a museum and we were a little bit more professional. We had more staff, and so we needed more offices. So Helen Jane's bedroom actually became the director's office. And here you can see the room with the filing cabinets is the director's assistant's office. The director's office is at the back, the sleeping porch area with this dramatic dark wall. And then they built a separate space to be a conference room. So there's the conference room, assistant's office, and director's office. When we renovated the museum in 1990, we knocked out that temporary wall between the assistant's office and the conference room, and we opened the gallery back up. And so this is what the galleries look like today, and here's a larger image. So you can still see that this was Helen Jane's bedroom, bathroom, and dressing room. That kind of, those 3 rooms together make this first space. But the sleeping porch, the footprint of the sleeping porch is still there. And I wanted to share an image of one of the paintings that's in the sleeping porch with you. It is absolutely fantastic, and it was just recently placed on loan, and so you may not have gotten to see it in person. So this is A Victory for the Water Protectors by Kent Monkman. So this huge, monumental, dramatic painting is absolutely based on history painting of the European tradition, European and American tradition, of multi-figure images that are often of battle scenes that usually tell a story, tell about a moment in history. And so Kent Monkman has depicted a moment in history, the moment of the battle for Indigenous rights, sovereignty, and environmentalism at Standing Rock. And so here we have victory for the water protectors. So the water protectors are battling against the police to protect their own land and their own people. But we know that in this image, it's titled Victory for the Water Protectors. So they do win this battle, this particular battle. But it is so dramatic, so monumental, and the emotion that's expressed is absolutely amazing. So that's Helen Jane's bedroom and sleeping porch. And let's take a look at Elliott's bedroom. So here we go. So I mentioned that this is absolutely the bedroom of a 9-year-old boy. And it also is a room that it doesn't quite seem it seems lived in. So Helen Jane's room looked like she'd already moved out. She'd already moved to live with her husband in their new home. This looks like the room of someone a little boy who lives there. So we have things that are stuck on the mantle. So the mantle is not very deep. It's just a little ledge, but still Elliot has been able to put knives and sheaths, maybe some animal bones, some sticks, other things that he loves are tucked up on that mantle. There are lassos and other things draped on the sconces. This room absolutely takes the cake in terms of stuffed animals for a kid. Stuffed animals that are taxidermied, not plush though. There's one wall has some sort of a wild pig or boar. There's a leopard, a bobcat. There's even a stuffed raccoon and a heron. So we have this whole plethora of animals. And there wasn't really as much of a difference back then as there maybe is today. People who loved being outdoors and loved animals also may have taxidermied animals in their house. It's not seen as the same thing as it might be seen today. but you see that outside absolutely in Elliot's room. And what we understand from Elliot himself is that all he wanted to do was be outside. He would come home from school, he'd run home from school, drop off his stuff, and run outside. They kept horses. He would ride his horses across the creek. He had his dogs. He would go up and down the creek and try to find animal tracks. He would try to tree animals. He said he never really had any luck at finding animals, but boy, did he look for them. I'm sure that the animals scattered as soon as they heard him coming. But he loved being outside. He loved being with animals. He loved being with his friends. And he truly, truly wanted to be outside or at Philmont. They're our sort of sister house, our sister organization, which is in New Mexico. The Phillipses built Villa Philbrook and Villa Philmonte at the same time, the same architects, same contractors, everything. But it was in the mountains of New Mexico. And Elliot wanted to be in New Mexico, and he ended up being a rancher. You can see that that love of being outside and love of being with animals started really young, but he was able to pursue that as his passion throughout his life. So this is a room that is enjoyed, but is enjoyed only when he has to be in a rainy day, when he has to be inside, or when he's going to go in to go to bed. But again, Genevieve really thought about him, what he would need in the room, and even the decoration. So the drapes, which can be so formal, if you look really closely, what's on the drapes? But a bull. And so you can see that even the drapes have this little bit of an animal, the reference to an animal in them. So as I mentioned, all of the family members had a bedroom, which probably was more like a study or a resting room. Elliot's desk was fitted to have a typewriter so he could do his schoolwork here, but they also had a sleeping porch. So we do have a photograph of Elliot's sleeping porch. It's the only photograph that we have of one of the sleeping porches. So you can see it really is just a bedroom. It has two twin beds and kind of maybe a Spanish style or a heavier style than you can imagine for Helen Jane's Louis XV furniture, but it's a room with windows. The windows could open so you could get a breeze. They also had blinds so you could block off the sun. Bedside tables, lamps. So this is a bedroom. And so this is where Elliot slept, and you can imagine a similar room for Helen Jade. So this room, in the 70s, again, when we needed more office space, this room became the room for the graphics department. So you can see here probably the same window as in the sleeping porch, has the great two drafting tables, flexible seating, and then a whole table full of markers and a phone. So this is the place where brochures were designed, posters were designed. This was the graphics department. When we renovated in 1990, it became a print gallery, and then about 10 years ago or so, we were able to bring our African collection into this room. And so now this is our African gallery, and here's a beautiful big image of our African gallery. A lot of African sculpture, mostly from the western and central portions of Africa. And one of my absolute favorite sculptures in this gallery is the Snufu helmet mask, which is on the right edge of the photograph. And then here's a larger image of it. So this is truly a masterpiece in carving and conception and design, and we know because of the patina on the object that it was actually danced. So it was part used as a ritual object. And this is such a powerful mask, a powerful image. This mask includes portions of different animals. So this isn't just a mask representing one animal, it represents the power of multiple animals. So you have an antelope or a horned animal, you have some sort of water buffalo, so a really strong animal. You have a warthog, so we have kind of the horns coming up out of the jaws. So a warthog would be a fierce animal. Also, a crocodile, you can see that flat mouth, the jaws of a crocodile, also incredibly fierce. And then up at the top of the head, there are two animals, a bird of some kind, and then also an animal with a curved tail. And so that's a chameleon that can change, transform. And so each of these animals would imbue this, by carving each of these animals into this, onto this mask, you would be able to imbue this mask with the powers from each of these animals. And the mask would be danced in very specific ceremonies, and it's called a fire spitter mask because the person that would be dancing the mask would place an ember or a coal on the interior of the jaws of the mask, and at the right moment in the mask, as you're dancing, and you'd be covered in raffia, and you'd have the helmet mask on your head, and you're dancing, and at the exact right moment you would blow, and with your breath, the sparks from this glowing ember would spit out of the mouth. And imagine that power and majesty and mystery that would encompass the dancing of this mask. So this is truly a masterpiece, and we're really lucky to have it at Philbrook. So that's part of our gallery today, but I also wanted to go back to our image of the kids. So Helen, Jade, and Elliot. And in this image, remember they're in the garden. And so when you are, so remember that image, when you come back to Philbrook, and we are excited to, we're planning to reopen our gardens first, and in a few weeks. And so when you come back to Philbrook, we hope you come back soon. We hope you come back to the gardens. We hope you get the joy and respite of being outside. And we hope that you imagine exploring the gardens like one of the kids, like Elliot, who is just excited and rambunctious and is all over the garden looking for the bugs and the birds and the animal tracks. And also Helen Jane, a little bit older, maybe she's with her friends and visiting on, in the grass on a blanket. So we hope that you come back and explore the gardens in your own way. We can't wait to see you. So enjoy the week. Until then, we'll do another room of the week next week. But keep thinking about coming in and exploring the gardens. We can't wait to see you. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.